The sun had barely risen over Ouagadougou when Ibrahim Traoré stood alone on the balcony of the presidential palace. His eyes scanned the horizon, but his mind was elsewhere, on a coded message intercepted only hours before. The Mossad had been quietly funding armed factions along Burkina Faso's northern borders, hoping to destabilize his government. Israel's hidden hand, guided by none other than Prime Minister Netanyahu, had finally shown itself. Inside the war room, Traoré's inner circle waited in tense silence. His chief of intelligence, his defense minister, and two trusted generals leaned over satellite maps and classified reports. "Mr. President, this is an indirect declaration of war," said General Kabore, voice trembling more than he wanted to admit. Traoré didn't flinch. He turned slowly, his posture commanding but his face calm. "We didn't choose this fight," he said, voice low yet sharp. "But if they want to break Africa's backbone, they will learn we bend for no one." He ordered immediate lockdown of key installations, instructed his diplomats to leak just enough information to shock the African Union awake, and sent a single message back to Tel Aviv: "Come for my people and you'll meet me first." For Netanyahu, this young African leader had always seemed like an annoyance, bold, loud, but manageable. Now the word from his intelligence chief was clear. Traoré knew everything, and he wasn't backing down. In the coming hours, two men half a world apart would begin the most dangerous game of chess either had ever played, and this time the board was all of Africa. In Jerusalem, Netanyahu slammed the folder shut, sending a stack of classified photos scattering across the polished oak table. Around him, a handful of his closest advisors exchanged nervous glances. "This boy thinks he can embarrass Israel?" Netanyahu spat, his tone half disbelief, half rage. One of his aides cleared his throat carefully. "Prime Minister, our operatives confirm Traoré's military units have sealed the northern routes. He's deployed anti-drone systems near the mining corridors too. He's not bluffing." Netanyahu paced to the large window of his secure office, staring out at the ancient city while his mind raced through options. Assassinate Traoré, unleash more proxy militias, or negotiate under a false flag. But Traoré had already shifted the battlefield. African news outlets were broadcasting the intercepted plot in coded language, riling up public anger against foreign interference. In Ouagadougou, Traoré's war room buzzed like a beehive. Young officers relayed troop movements over radios. Farmers were sending grain to feed border garrisons. Civilian militias, loyal only to Traoré, were drilling in schoolyards and village squares. By midnight, Traoré sat alone at his desk, scribbling a speech by hand. "To my people, if we fight back, we might die. But if we do nothing, we live as slaves." He knew Netanyahu would be listening too. That was the point. In the shadows, two men prepared for a clash that no one had imagined possible. Israel's seasoned tactician versus Africa's defiant son. And neither man intended to lose. By dawn, Burkina Faso's streets were flooded not with panic, but with resolve. Old men polished rusted hunting rifles from their youth. Teenage boys and girls lined up for volunteer patrols, each wearing a makeshift bandana in the national colors. In a hidden bunker beneath the presidential palace, Traoré stood over a large map illuminated by a single dangling bulb. His generals surrounded him, most of them former rebels who'd fought at his side years ago. "Netanyahu thinks he's fighting a proxy war," Traoré said, his voice calm but sharp. "He expects sabotage, bribes, a quick regime change, but what he doesn't expect is this." He pointed at the map, where clusters of tiny red flags marked local militias, loyal tribal elders, and supply chains snaking through forests and fields. One young commander spoke up. "Sir, if Israel launches drones, we can't match their tech, but if we hold the people, they can't hold the minds." Traoré nodded. "Exactly. Our land is not their chessboard. It's our mother. They may poison our leaders, but they cannot poison every soul ready to defend her." Back in Tel Aviv, Netanyahu's intelligence chief whispered urgently in his ear during a closed-door briefing. "Mr. Prime Minister, he's turning your secret operation into his public war cry. African Union countries are starting to echo him. If we push harder, this could spiral." Netanyahu slammed his fist on the table. "Then let it spiral. If Traoré wants a storm, we will show him a hurricane." Unseen to both men, a new front was brewing. Not just drones and bribes, but hearts and minds. And it was a war Africa had never fought like this before. While global news outlets scrambled to catch up, social media across Africa exploded with one phrase: "We fight back or die trying." It was a clip of Traoré's midnight address, grainy but powerful, shared millions of times within hours. In makeshift studios from Lagos to Nairobi, young influencers dissected every word. Local musicians turned the speech into street anthems. Even rural villages without internet repeated his vow like a prayer. Meanwhile, in Israel, Netanyahu faced an uncomfortable reality. His advisors bickered behind closed doors. Some insisted on a swift covert strike to remove Traoré, while others warned that every drone attack risked creating a martyr. "He's not just a man anymore," one general told Netanyahu. "He's a symbol. Kill him now and 10 more will rise." But Netanyahu, leaning over a secure line to a trusted European ally, whispered a different plan. "Starve him of allies, cut his supply routes, bribe his neighbors, make his people doubt him. A leader alone is easy to break." Back in Ouagadougou, Traoré gathered his inner circle in a dusty courtyard behind the palace. He looked each loyalist in the eye. "I won't lie to you," he said. "Some of you will bury sons before this is over. Some of you may bury me. But if we don't hold now, our children will bury this land forever." A hush fell. Then one old village chief stepped forward, laying a weathered hand on Traoré's shoulder. "Then we stand with you, alive or dead we stand." And for the first time since the threat began, Traoré felt not like a hunted man, but like the point of a spear forged by millions. Under a blazing Sahel sun, convoys rumbled out of Ouagadougou, loaded not just with weapons but with grain, medicine, and school supplies. Traoré's orders were clear. "If we're going to fight, we must feed our people first. Hungry soldiers win no wars. Hungry citizens fight no battles." Across the border, Netanyahu's envoys arrived in dusty capital after dusty capital, offering secret deals to Traoré's neighbors, lucrative arms contracts, intelligence support, promises of Western investment if they quietly turned against Burkina Faso. Some presidents listened, tempted by the shiny offers. Some secretly recorded every word, then called Traoré at dawn. One night, Traoré and his closest aide, Sankara, sat cross-legged on a woven mat in a village near the northern frontier. No armored cars, no palace guards, just the two of them under a canopy of stars, sharing roasted millet and bitter tea. "They're squeezing us," Sankara said, his voice hoarse. "Cutting our lines, spreading lies. Even the radio says you sold gold to terrorists." Traoré cracked a tired smile. "Then let them say it. When the truth comes, even the liars drown in it." Just then, a young scout stumbled into the camp, sweat-soaked and breathless. "President, message from our spies. Netanyahu's agents are bribing tribal chiefs near the border. They promise land and weapons if they revolt." Sankara slammed his fist into the earth. Traoré, however, stayed calm, his eyes fixed on the distant darkness where tomorrow's threat hid. "Tell our people," he said quietly, "that every inch of this soil is paid for in blood, ours, not theirs, and that no man, no money, no foreign flag will buy even a single grain of it." Somewhere in a secure bunker far away, Netanyahu received word that his covert plan was failing because he'd underestimated the one thing he could never bribe: a people who knew exactly what they were fighting for. At dawn, Traoré stood before a crowd of villagers and militia leaders in a dusty clearing near the border. His shirt was stained with road dust, his boots crusted with Sahel mud, yet his voice carried like thunder. "Netanyahu thinks he can divide us with gold and guns," he declared, gesturing to the rugged hills behind him. "But we are not for sale, not our land, not our children's future." Elders nodded, some murmuring prayers under their breath. Young men gripped old rifles tighter, women clutched baskets of grain, proof that even war could not stop the planting season. Meanwhile, far away in Tel Aviv, Netanyahu slammed his desk in frustration. His advisors warned him, "Sir, Traoré is turning every threat into a rallying cry. The more you push, the more united they become." Still, he refused to back down. Private contractors were dispatched, mercenaries with satellite phones and suitcases of cash. They prowled border towns, looking for discontented men to stir up rebellion. Back at the frontline village, Traoré met secretly with a circle of loyal regional chiefs under a neem tree. Maps lay spread on a battered wooden table, routes for supply caravans, secret radio frequencies, lists of safe houses. One elder leaned close, whispering, "Ibrahim, Netanyahu will not stop. He will come for you directly." Traoré's eyes flashed with iron resolve. "Then let him come. He will find not a president hiding behind walls, but a farmer standing in his field, with his people at his back and this soil in his veins." As dusk fell, fires flickered across the hills, signals to every village that the time for fear was over and the fight for Africa's soul had truly begun. Night in the Sahel brings a cold silence, but this night hummed with quiet defiance. Around a ring of campfires, Traoré's trusted circle gathered. Young lieutenants, old tribal warriors, women commanders who had buried husbands yet refused to flee. Traoré knelt beside a rough map drawn in the dust. His finger traced supply routes from Mali to Niger, secret paths through thorny scrublands. He spoke low, but every ear strained to catch his words. "Netanyahu's agents pay bribes to turn brother against brother," he said, voice steady despite the flickering shadows on his face. "But loyalty can't be bought with foreign gold when our dignity is at stake." A grizzled fighter, his beard silver under the moonlight, spat into the sand. "Let them come. We fought off colonial armies with machetes and bows. We will bury mercenaries the same way." Traoré looked each of them in the eye, his own bloodshot from days without sleep. "You are my shield. You are Burkina Faso's spine. If I fall tonight, the fight does not end. Promise me that." One by one, they clasped his hands, calloused, scarred, but warm with the certainty of shared purpose. A distant dog barked. Somewhere in the darkness, a signal torch flared and vanished. Meanwhile, in an air-conditioned room thousands of miles away, Netanyahu leaned back in a leather chair watching grainy drone footage of the Sahel. His advisors argued, some urging retreat, others craving escalation. He dismissed them with a curt wave. Find the weak link in his circle. Every man has a price. But Netanyahu miscalculated. For Traoré's men, the only currency that mattered now was honor. And tomorrow, under the scorching African sun, they would show the world what that meant. Dawn broke like a promise over the dry plains of Burkina Faso. The first light caught the silhouettes of Traoré's fighters moving through narrow trails. No armored convoys, no drones overhead this time, just feet on dust, rifles slung low, eyes scanning the thorn bush. Word had spread overnight. Netanyahu's envoys had slipped across the border disguised as aid workers. Their goal? To bribe a local chief to turn Traoré's safe villages into traps, but Traoré was already 2 steps ahead. With his closest guard, a wiry ex-schoolteacher named Amadou, he rode at the front of the column. His radio crackled with updates from scouts hidden in the scrub. Each message confirmed the same truth. The foreign plot was rotting from within. At a small hamlet near the riverbed, Traoré dismounted. Children peeked out from huts, clutching rough toy trucks made from wire. He squatted low, speaking softly to the village elder, a blind man whose memory stretched back to the independence wars. "Tell your sons," Traoré said, resting a hand on the elder's shoulder. The world believes Africa is too divided to resist men like Netanyahu. They will see today how wrong they are. Hidden behind a clay wall, 3 of Netanyahu's agents sweated in their stolen uniforms. One reached for a concealed pistol, but hesitated when he saw the villagers emerging with machetes, not to attack Traoré, but to surround the infiltrators. Within minutes, the agents were dragged before Traoré. He didn't shout, he didn't strike them, he only leaned close enough to whisper in the oldest one's ear, "Go home. Tell your master we are not for sale. Not our gold, not our sons, not our future." And with that, Traoré turned, lifted a small boy into his arms, and let the cameras capture exactly what defiance looked like under the African sun. News of the failed infiltration spread like wildfire. By midday, radio stations from Ouagadougou to Lagos were broadcasting cell phone clips of the villagers standing guard behind Traoré, machetes raised high in the morning sun. Hashtags bloomed across African social media, number not for sale, number Africa fights back. In Tel Aviv, Netanyahu slammed his desk hard enough to crack the glass. His Security Council scrambled for options. Assassinate Traoré outright? Fund more mercenaries? But every covert plan leaked within hours. Someone close to the Israeli inner circle was feeding details back to Traoré's network. Meanwhile, in Burkina Faso's countryside, Traoré's strategy shifted. He called village chiefs and student leaders to secret councils. Under baobab trees and inside cramped mud mosques, they drafted local defense pacts. If one village was touched, 10 more would rise. Traoré spoke simply, but with the fire of an old revolutionary. They send gold dealers and fake charities to buy our loyalty. Next, they send bullets when we refuse. So we will stand as one. Our unity is our greatest weapon. Young men, some barely old enough to grow a beard, volunteered in droves. Women cooked huge pots of rice and millet for passing patrols. Even school children carried water and messages along hidden paths between villages. The Western media called it primitive resistance. But on the ground, it felt like a slow, unstoppable tide, washing away every footprint Netanyahu's agents had left behind. And as dusk fell, Traoré, surrounded by his people, looked up at the bright new moon. "Let him come himself next time," he murmured, knowing cameras were rolling. "If he wants Africa, he'll have to stand here and face us all." Netanyahu's last move was as desperate as it was predictable. A sudden, humanitarian convoy appeared on the northern border. White trucks marked with fake aid logos but hiding armored vehicles beneath tarps. They expected poor villagers to scatter, to welcome the food and fear the guns. But when the trucks rumbled into the first village, they found no frightened peasants, only a wall of villagers, farmers, old men, and youth standing shoulder to shoulder behind Traoré himself. His arms were crossed. A single microphone was clipped to his shirt. Dozens of journalists had been tipped off to witness this final showdown live. "Prime Minister Netanyahu!" Traoré's voice boomed through the field speakers. "You tried gold, you tried bribes, you tried guns dressed as kindness. But Africa sees through your lies, and today, the world does too." He raised one hand, and 100 local militiamen unmasked the armored trucks. Cameras zoomed in on the weapons inside, beamed the proof worldwide. Within minutes, hashtags like #fake aid trended across continents. Embassies scrambled to distance themselves. Israeli officials denied everything. Too late. As the convoy was escorted out under international media glare, Traoré turned back to his people. He wasn't smiling. He looked tired, raw, but unbroken. "This isn't just about me. This is Africa's line in the sand," he said, voice cracking but strong enough for every radio to catch. "From today, no one divides us. No one buys us. If they try—" A roar rose behind him. Farmers, students, soldiers, children, thousands finishing his sentence in unison. "We fight back or die trying." The world watched. And for the first time in generations, Africa looked like it truly might stand alone, unbowed and indivisible. Ladies and gentlemen, today's story was not just about Ibrahim Traoré or Benjamin Netanyahu. It was about a continent drawing a line, a people saying enough. It was about the raw, unstoppable courage that lives in every village, every street, every heart that refuses to bow to foreign pressure and hidden agendas. Traoré's words echo far beyond one border. We fight back or die trying. In a world where power often hides behind diplomacy and false aid, this tale reminds us that true strength lies in unity, truth, and the refusal to be divided. If this story moved you, share it, discuss it, question it, because the more we speak of freedom and dignity, the harder they are to steal. Thank you for watching The Untold State. Stay awake, stay fearless, and never stop asking who really pulls the strings.